I'm getting ready to kick off the next major project, which is Hellboy's Samaritan pistol. As luck would have it, when I finished off the resin Terminator, the guy that I was building the Terminator for had a Samaritan kit that he was working on himself, and it's one of the ones that's always been in my mind in terms of one that I'd like to make in real metal. And a big shout out and thank you to Dan for providing one of these kits for me. The complexity in the cast that he's done is really nice in that it's got all the parts broken down into its individual component pieces, and those broken down elements tend to make for a really nice assembly when it comes to building these sort of kits. What I'm doing though is going to be turning this into a cast aluminium version, and as a result of that there's a lot of complexity in the shapes that are going to provide a fairly high degree of difficulty in terms of getting them cast into solid aluminium pieces that will still fit together in an appropriate way and have the mechanisms operate properly. What I've got to do with this is break it down even further. I've started doing some simple stuff first. I'm hoping that I'll be able to cast the barrel section in one piece, and as a result I've blocked off and rounded off those front edges, and that should assist in the separating of the mould. For anybody who doesn't know what I'm doing with this sort of setup, I'm using a top and bottom box setup. This one's a little bit different. I use it for the smaller pieces so it actually has a base to the box. More commonly they're like this in terms that they don't have a top or a bottom to them, and you pack the sand in. It's a green sand method of casting which creates the two clamshell sort of pieces, and that middle void is where the molten metal is poured in, and hopefully you end up with your finished piece. The problem that comes with casting up these types of pieces, if you take something like the bullet there, which could easily be cast in one piece, there's no issues of overhang where you've got a piece that undercuts the area, as opposed to this sort of thing where you've got lots of little areas that undercut. So to get the sand packed in there and then be able to get it out in one piece is quite difficult. So to get around those sort of issues, as I said, I'm starting to break these down further, and in this instance what I've done is sliced it down the center so that I can separate those two pieces into two separate halves. That allows me to pack them into the sand in such a way that I can pack that down on a flat surface and get the sand packed around it as it needs to be, and then when it's taken over it gives me that flat surface that I can then reintroduce the other piece to, and then pack the sand again to that, which allows me to pick up those undercut areas that would be normally lost in this type of method of casting. The revolver chamber, on the other hand, is really sort of doing my head in a little bit at the moment. There's a whole lot of complexity in that I've got to try and capture in the sand casting. I might be able to do it as one piece and bore the holes out separately at the end, or I may be able to work out some sort of cut arrangement similar to what I've done with the trigger mechanism that'll allow me to get that back into one solid piece. So I'll have to scratch my head a little bit more for that one. As you may have seen in the last video that I did as well, I've also worked out a way of doing the Thor's hammer casting, and I think I've worked out a method that's going to pick up those details really nicely as well. And because I'm firing up the furnace and melting down the metal, I thought I might as well make this a two-in-one project. So that's another thing that's going to be quite literally on the boil as well. As I've said in previous videos, gun laws in Australia are really tough, but because this is such a comically large pistol, I'm not concerned about it being recognised as a real weapon, and I'll be taking a bit more time and effort to try and get as much detail in as I can. So there's lots of little bits to tackle here in terms of getting the look that we're after, but I'm very happy with the bits that I've got to work with there. And whilst it's going to be a fairly in-depth project, the parts that I've got here lead me to believe that it should be all worth the effort in the end. So there's a long way to go on this one, and once I've worked out the breakdown geometry of what I'm doing with these pieces, it should be on to melting down some metal and getting some parts made up. That's the update for this time, guys. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.